there, coworker friends. Oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. Basically, this story is where Costco said, absolutely not. Let's get into it.
LinkedIn Success Mini Course. My name is Tara.
What's up, my favorite coworkers? Thank you for joining me here at the Cubicle in the Corner. On my channel, we talk about all of the shady dealings and back alleys and dusty hallways of corporate America. And of course, if corporate America is doing something right, I'll talk about that too. I'm a certified HR professional. I've worked in recruiting for many years in corporate America. So I tend to look at these stories from that lens. And so thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you. I also just want to interrupt this video really quickly to say thank you. I'm so shocked. I have 10 subscribers, and I feel like I really just started because I had some other YouTube videos. You can go take a look at those if you're interested in learning how to interview or update your resume. But I haven't been consistent. And so the fact that I have 10 subscribers, I'm super stoked and I'm looking forward to, I can't wait till we get to 50. So thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. Bye. So today we're going to be talking about Costco, and they basically were like, nope, we are not giving in when it comes to DEI initiatives. And it's really interesting because there's so much conversation around DEI. People don't understand it. People think that it is actually doing the opposite of what it does, which is they think it's exclusionary, all of these different things, right? So basically, activist investors are attacking corporate America, and especially they're going after corporate companies that have DEI initiatives. And so before we dive deep into that and how they've got their laser beams focused on these companies and making many of them fold, we have to rewind back to 2020 and talk about how did we even get here, right? In 2020, uh, that was an interesting year for most of us. And there were global shutdowns. There was the loss of George Floyd. From that erupted all of these uprisings and protests. And a lot of companies were under pressure to prove that they cared about inclusion and diversity, especially when it came to BIPOC or Black, Indigenous people of color, right? And so people were, a lot of consumers were putting pressure on companies, and a lot of companies gave in. Even on a personal note, I will say, I had a lot of outreach in 2020 from recruiters that were basically saying, hey, you're Black, so can you work for us? Now, they didn't say that because that is illegal. And if they had said that, I definitely would have screenshotted those captions and then proceeded. Okay. But that didn't happen. But I did get a lot of emails that were saying things like, hey, we're, trying to increase our diversity, or we're learning about diversity, or roundabout ways of telling me why they were reaching out to me. And so obviously, if you're not reaching out to me based on my skill set, if you're not looking and saying like, hey, you have the skills that we need, I'm really not interested in fulfilling a quota. So I get what people are talking about. However, there's a lot of misinformation about DEI and what it is and what it isn't. And so just because some people are not educated and they do outreach like that, does that mean that DEI is bad? No, it doesn't. But was it being implemented the wrong way in certain companies? That's up for debate. And I would say probably, right? But in another video, like I said, I'll dive into what DEI is and what DEI isn't. But I want to talk about, with everything that happened in 2020, what that led to was, like I said, a lot of companies that jumped on the bandwagon of DEI when they really weren't about that diversity, equity, and inclusion life. And that maybe wasn't part of their actual company culture. And so if I were to do a flow chart, which maybe I should have, or maybe I could for another deep dive type of video. But if you look at the companies that are folding under DEI pressure, these are companies that may not have necessarily had these commitments in the first place, right? So if I were to think about, let's see, who are some of the companies like Tractor Supply Company, and I'm looking at my notes right now, I'm looking it up. Tractor Supply Company started their DEI commitments in the third quarter of 2020. Walmart, when did they start their Center for Racial Equity? June 2020. Zoom brought in their first chief diversity officer back in June of 2020. So you can see the pattern here. So it's not hard to figure out which companies may fold actually as this year continues, because they're usually the companies, I would guess, that started a lot of their DEI commitments and all of those things in 2020. So basically what I'm saying is a lot of corporations hopped on the DEI bandwagon. They may have implemented it incorrectly. They started their DEI initiatives in 2020, so it doesn't surprise me to see them falling off now. So how did we get here with Costco? Well, let's talk about activist investors and what those are. So basically, if you can imagine being a shareholder in a company, so if you're a shareholder, you technically own a piece of that company. So you don't get to call the shots day by day, but you do have voting rights on some of the big decisions, like who gets to be on the board of directors. And usually you vote by mailing in or emailing in or doing something online. Or at the annual shareholder meeting. And this is called voting by proxy. So a lot of activist investors like to start proxy wars, right? Which is the company is going to make a suggestion on what they think their shareholders should vote yes or no for. And then the activist investors will say, hey, well, we think you should vote in this way. So there's all of this kind of power struggle between two groups. And so let's say the activist investors may think that the current board isn't doing a great job, or they want the company to take a different direction, like cut costs or sell off a division or focus more on social issues, like getting rid of DEI, right? So they launch a campaign, and that campaign can be through social media, being on the news, being on financial shows like CNBC, and really trying to convince other shareholders to vote for their initiatives instead of the ones that the company management supports. So it's kind of like an election, but it's for what happens within that company. And so shareholders, we get flooded with letters, emails, all these different things from both sides. And the outcome can really change how a company does business. It can change, shareholders can even influence, like, if they want to get a CEO out of there, right? Like there's a lot of power that shareholders have, especially these activist shareholder groups, because usually proxy battles are high stakes. They have a large share in the corporation and all of that. And, anyone can become an activist shareholder. So anybody can start a group like this and to put pressure on companies. And it happens all the time. So whether that's with ESG issues, that's environmental, social that we're talking about, and governance issues, like, right, like the board of directors. And so this is what they do. And when I'm thinking about Costco, it is so interesting because, like I said, you had Walmart fold, you had Tractor Supply Company fold, you had Deere Company fold. Like all of these organizations were like, okay, we're going to get rid of our DEI initiatives. Costco said no. But let's take a step back and look at who are these activist shareholders. So first, there's the National Center for Public Policy Research. And they have a history of targeting companies around corporate DEI initiatives. They were founded in 1982. They are self-described as a conservative think tank. And they have something called the Free Enterprise Project, which says they work to combat growing left-of-center influence on corporations, serving as primary means of stakeholder activism. So that is a group. And what's interesting about this particular group is hey there, just interrupting this video with a small disclaimer. The information in this video is shared solely for educational purposes. It is not intended to incite harassment, intimidation, or any form of negative behavior towards the companies mentioned. I strongly advise against reaching out to these organizations in a manner that may be harmful or disruptive. Please approach this content with the understanding that its purpose is to inform and promote constructive discussions around the issues of discrimination. Thank you. That their vice president actually was part of a group that was, I think, 90% funded by the CIA. So this was a group that was that had something to do with the youth of America. And so, really interesting. I actually want to dig a little deeper into that because I'm very curious about that background and the background of the other people. So, we'll get into that at another time. Then you also have Robbie Starbuck, who is an activist, and he used to be a music video director and producer, and he's making waves now for putting pressure on companies to get rid of all their DEI initiatives and practices because he considers them unfair. What's interesting about him is that his backstory is, I think, him being in Hollywood or being involved in the music industry led him to have a different change of mind. And so he wanted to start charting companies that he considers woke, right? So again, we've talked about who their company successes are and things like that. So like last month, Walmart ended all of their DEI and racial equity training programs for staff. And now they say that they're evaluating programs, um, and seeing what they can do, but they've gotten rid of everything. And they used to care about increasing supplier diversity. I think that program is out the window as well. And so they also said that they will not continue their Center for Racial Equity. So that was a $100 million initiative that they started in 2020. Let's fast forward to this activist. So now that you know who the players are, let's talk about what happened in the proxy. And I'm going to pull up the proxy here, and I really want to read just one aspect of it. So let me grab that. And we're going to look at the Costco proxy statement together. So this is the Costco notice of annual meetings of shareholders. And I'm going to skip down to the part where this organization is talking about their proposal for DEI efforts, right? So we're talking about the activist investor, and this is what they are proposing. Basically, I'm not going to read all of this, but basically what they're saying is if you read through this, they're saying, listen, the Supreme Court ruled in SFFA versus Harvard. I feel like I'm saying three Fs, so forgive me. That discriminating on the basis of race in college admissions violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, right? So they're coming with that. They're giving other examples of companies that have been sued and saying, hey, this is going to cause more problems in the long run, and it's going to affect the shareholders because we invest to make money. And so if you are participating in these practices, you are knowingly going against your shareholders. Essentially, that's kind of the overview of it, right? Then they talked about some of their wins. So they said Alphabet and Meta cut DEI staff and DEI related investments. Microsoft laid off an entire DEI team, as did Zoom, and John Deere publicly stated that it halted many policies that were previously part of its DEI efforts. So they go on to say, it's clear that DEI holds litigation, reputational, and financial risks to the company, and therefore financial risks to shareholders. What is interesting about this is they go on to say, and yet Costco still has such a program. So again, they're going on to say that, like, listen, Costco doesn't care that it's going to affect their business. They still have a program, even though lawsuits are going to cost millions of dollars, all of these things. Then they kind of ended out with saying that of all Costco's employees, these people who are potentially victims of this type of illegal discrimination because they are white, Asian, male, or straight, which is not that's not even legal. You can't discriminate against anyone because of their gender. You can't discriminate based on race or color or sexual orientation or religion. So what they're saying is categorically false, but they're phrasing it, in this way. And the board of directors response here says the board of directors unanimously recommends a vote against this proposal. And so I'm sure a lot of you have seen the news articles, but basically it says this is the interesting one. So, and people have proven that diversity is a positive thing for business. But Costco saying, hey, our success at Costco Wholesale has been built on service to our critical stakeholders, employees, members, and suppliers. Our efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion follow our code of ethics. So for our employees, these efforts are built around inclusion, having all of our employees feel valued and respected. Our efforts at diversity, equity, and inclusion remind and reinforce with everyone at our company the importance of creating opportunities for all. And then they say, we welcome members from all walks of life and backgrounds. As our membership diversifies, we believe that serving it with a diverse group of employees enhances satisfaction. And that's a fact. Like, diversity actually makes good business sense. And again, I'll make a video about what diversity isn't. It's not just about choosing the person of color, right? It's not that at all. Diversity and inclusion means that, especially as a retailer, do the people that work for you reflect the community that you're in, right? So there's all kinds of different people. And so a company would want diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of education, like all of these things make up diversity. But I think because of 2020, a lot of people mistakenly think it's just based on color and tokenism, which is not the extent of what diversity and inclusion is. And in fact, I would even go further to say it's not even what it is. So they say, among other things, a diverse group of employees helps bring originality and creativity to our merchandise offerings, promoting the treasure hunt that our customers value. The group also helps provide insights into the tastes and preferences of our members. We believe, and member feedback shows, that many of our members like to see themselves reflected in the people in our warehouse with whom they interact. So they've done the research and they're saying, hey, you know what? First of all, equity and inclusion is in our DNA. So we're not getting rid of that commitment. Also, it's good for business and it's been proven. Now, as part of some backlash, you do have people that are saying they're going to boycott Costco and they're not going to shop at Costco anymore. And again, I think it's because people don't understand exactly what equity and inclusion actually is. Now, here's the thing about all of that. Of course, there's been a lot of talk in the news and people are excited about the fact that Costco is standing their ground. And it makes sense, right? Because this is a big pushback, especially, like I said, you got big companies to fold. You've got Microsoft to fold. You've got all these other companies that NCPPR was able to pressure and get them to fold. And now you have Costco saying, no, we're not going to do it. And so basically, I guess the question remains, like, by standing firm, I think that Costco is showing leadership at a time when it's needed most. And they're betting on the idea that diversity isn't just morally right, that it's also good for business. And in their own words, they are saying how a diverse team helps to spark creativity and innovation. and it improves the shopping experience and reflects the communities that they serve. So while other companies are folding under pressure, Costco is planting a flag and saying, hey, we're here to do the right thing. So I guess my question for you all is, how will that impact companies under similar pressure? And do you think that Costco's stand is going to inspire others, or do you think that other people are going to continue to fold under these activist shareholder pressures? Do you think people will start to reimagine what DEI looks like? Because again, it's not to say that it was rolled out perfectly at some companies. And what does this mean for DEI in the future of corporate America? Now, when all of those lawsuits started coming for the universities, I have to say that being in corporate and being a recruiter, I, I saw that this was coming down the pipe, right? Because I'm like, okay, if it's at the Supreme Court level for the universities, it's a matter of time before it comes down to corporate America. Um, I do think that it's interesting. We're in an interesting time. I'm looking at all the chatter like on different posts, and people are saying that, oh, DEI means didn't earn it, and all of these different things, and that's not true. But again, like I said, I'll post a video about what it is. But for now, Costco is standing firm. It sounds like they want to create a background environment where everyone, regardless of background, can thrive. And so a lot of times what companies don't understand is when they pull out of these initiatives, it doesn't just hurt their internal culture. It sends a signal that inclusivity isn't worth the effort. And so is that really what these other companies are, is that the message that they want to convey, right? So a lot to think on. There's a lot going on. And so I leave it up to you in the comments. Like, what do you know about DEI? What have you heard about it? And what do you think, what do you think about it? Do you think it's a discriminatory act? Because I will be creating a video and I would love to get some of your comments down below so that I can maybe address some of the issues that I've heard or that you have and really come to you with facts about what DEI and affirmative action is and what it isn't. Those things get used interchangeably, by the way, and they're not necessarily the same thing. So anyway, Costco's resistance is a bold move. This is an interesting time. And especially when a lot of companies are backtracking on their original commitments, Costco's standing firm. And so I think that they are going to have a lot of people that do support them. And I think they're going to have, of course, a lot of people, there may be some backlash, but how big will that backlash be? We don't know. Now, I'll end it with this. Even though Costco is standing firm on their commitments, their shareholders meeting is January the 23rd. So it still depends on how the shareholders were able to vote. And who knows, maybe this group was able to sway a large majority of the shareholders, right? We won't know until the 23rd. And so once that comes back, I'll be back again to talk about it. But just wanted to talk about what's happening in corporate. There's so much happening in corporate America. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about what happened with Abercrombie and Fitch. I just watched the Netflix video called White Hot. There's a lot to discuss there. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Excited, and please let me know what you think. Are you for DEI initiatives? Are you against them? Do you not know what DEI initiatives are? Let me know down in the comments, and I'm happy and excited to connect with you next time.